Let's cut the fluff. You can't fix what you won't face, and the hardest thing to face isn't the people around you. It's the lies you tell yourself. You know the ones. Oh, I'm fine. I'll start tomorrow. It's not that bad. Those lies are the cement shoes that keep you stuck in the same spot year after year. If you want to get real progress, the first battle isn't with the world, it's with your own self-deception. Here's the truth: you can't outsmart yourself. Every time you excuse, justify, or minimize, you are digging the same hole deeper. Lying to yourself might give you comfort in the moment, but it robs you of growth in the long run. If you keep telling yourself stories that make failure look acceptable, you'll never experience the discipline, freedom, and confidence that comes from facing the hard facts. The first key point is that self-deception is the biggest barrier to growth. If you think about it, life doesn't usually get derailed because of what you don't know. It gets derailed because of what you pretend not to know. Self-deception isn't always a bold-faced lie. It's usually quiet, sneaky, and subtle. It's the little justifications, the soft excuses, the watered-down half-truths that you tell yourself so you don't have to feel uncomfortable. It shows up as, I'll start next week, when you know you've said that for the past 3 years. It shows up as, I'm fine, when deep down you're not fine at all. And it shows up as, that's just how I am, when you know full well it's really a behavior you don't want to change. The reason self-deception is such a powerful barrier is that it cuts you off at the source. Growth requires truth. You can't improve what you won't admit is broken, and you can't heal what you won't acknowledge is hurting. When you lie to yourself, you are essentially locking the door from the inside and then wondering why your life feels stuck. You become both the jailer and the prisoner. On the surface, the lie gives you a small relief. You don't have to feel guilty. You don't have to face the work. You don't have to deal with the discomfort. But underneath, it builds frustration, guilt, and resentment toward yourself because a part of you knows you're playing small. Self-deception keeps people running in circles. Think about someone who says they want to get healthier. They'll say, I just don't have time to work out. That feels like a solid excuse. But is it the truth? Of course not. The truth is they don't want to be uncomfortable, or they don't want to prioritize exercise over other things they enjoy more. The cost of that lie is high: declining health, low energy, loss of confidence. But the lie feels cheaper in the moment. And that's why self-deception is so dangerous. It trades long-term success for short-term comfort. Another way self-deception blocks growth is by protecting your ego at the expense of your future. Nobody likes to admit they're the problem. Nobody enjoys saying, I procrastinate, or I avoid hard conversations, or I spend money irresponsibly. It stings, but that sting is where growth begins. If you numb the sting with a lie, you also numb your chance to change. Telling yourself it's not that bad or other people are worse might soothe your pride, but it locks you in a cycle where nothing ever improves. The very thing you think is protecting you is actually sabotaging you. Let's go even deeper. Self-deception isn't just about lying, it's about identity. The lies we tell ourselves often become the stories we live by. If you've been saying, I'm just not good with money for 10 years, that lie becomes a label you wear, and eventually it feels like part of who you are. Once it feels like identity, it's much harder to break free because changing the behavior feels like changing yourself. That's why self-honesty feels so threatening, because it requires you to step outside the comfortable identity you've built and take responsibility for shaping a new one. But here's the hard truth. Growth doesn't happen inside comfort zones, and it doesn't happen inside lies. Growth is only possible when you hold up the mirror and say, this is where I am. No excuses, no sugarcoating, just reality. Once you own reality, you can do something about it. If you don't, then every goal you set is just a wish built on shaky ground. Think about people who spend years saying they're going to write a book, start a business, or get out of a toxic relationship. Why doesn't it happen? Because they don't confront the real reason. They tell themselves, it's not the right time, or I'm waiting for a sign, when the truth is they're scared of failing or scared of succeeding and what that might demand of them. As long as they keep lying to themselves, they get to avoid fear, but they also avoid growth. And when you avoid growth, you also avoid the life you're capable of living. So when I say self-deception is the biggest barrier to growth, it's not just a catchy phrase, it's a reality check. You don't miss opportunities because you aren't smart enough, talented enough, or worthy enough. You miss them because you talk yourself out of them. You smooth over the cracks instead of repairing the foundation. You tell yourself you'll deal with it later. When later never comes, you become your own obstacle. Breaking free starts with brutal honesty. And yes, it's uncomfortable. Honesty exposes your flaws, but it also exposes your power. When you finally say, I'm not overweight because of genetics, I'm overweight because of my choices, you open the door to change. When you admit, I'm not failing in relationships because of bad luck, I'm failing because I avoid accountability, you suddenly have the power to do something different. Honesty might hurt your ego, but it heals your life. The truth is, you don't have to be perfect to grow. You just have to stop lying to yourself long enough to take the first step. Growth is already waiting. It's on the other side of your excuses. But you'll never get there if you keep letting self-deception write your story. The minute you confront the lies you tell yourself, you put yourself back in the driver's seat. And that's the moment real change begins. The second key point is that every lie has a hidden cost, and you either identify it or you keep paying it. Most people think of lies as harmless shortcuts, something that smooths over a rough edge or buys them a little comfort in the moment. But what they don't see is that each lie, no matter how small, carries a price tag. The cost might not hit you immediately, but it adds up like interest on a loan. The longer you lie to yourself, the more expensive it gets. And if you don't stop to calculate what that lie is costing you, you'll keep swiping the card until the bill comes due, and it always does. Take the simple lie, I'll start tomorrow. On the surface, it feels free. You avoid pressure for a moment. You get to relax and push responsibility into the future. But underneath, the cost is compounding. Every time you delay, you're building the habit of procrastination. You're training your brain to believe your own excuses. The result, projects remain unfinished, opportunities pass you by, and you lose trust in yourself. That one free lie ends up costing you your confidence and credibility. Think about the lie, I don't have time. It's a common one, and it feels believable. But what's the cost? The cost is missed chances to grow. The cost is relationships that go neglected, health that gets ignored, dreams that get postponed indefinitely. Time is going to pass whether you act or not. So every time you tell yourself that lie, you're not saving time, you're spending it poorly. Years later, when you look back, the cost of that lie will be regret. The truth is, the cost of self-deception often shows up in areas that matter most: health, relationships, money, and self-respect. When you lie to yourself about your health, it's just a few pounds, or I'll get serious after the holidays. The cost is energy, vitality, and even longevity. When you lie to yourself in relationships, they didn't mean it, or it's not toxic, it's just complicated. The cost is emotional peace, wasted years, and damage to your self-worth. When you lie to yourself about money, I deserve this, or I'll pay it off later, the cost is debt, stress, and lost freedom. And perhaps the heaviest cost of all is when you lie to yourself about your own potential. I'm not capable, or it's too late for me. That cost is the unlived life you could have had. Now, why is it so important to identify these costs? Because until you do, the lie looks cheap. It feels like a small trade comfort now for change later. But when you shine a light on the cost, the lie loses its power. If you admit, this excuse is costing me my marriage, or this lie is costing me 10 years of financial freedom, suddenly it's not so easy to swallow anymore. You see the bill and it's too high to ignore. Awareness turns the cheap lie into an expensive liability, and that awareness is often the wake-up call people need to stop repeating it. Here's the other side of this truth. If you refuse to identify the cost, you don't get to escape it. You just keep paying it unconsciously. It's like ignoring a leaky roof. You can pretend it's not that bad, but every day you ignore it, the water damage spreads. By the time you finally admit there's a problem, the cost of repair is 10 times higher. Lies work the same way. A small lie ignored becomes a big problem later. A little dishonesty about your spending turns into years of debt. A little dishonesty about your unhappiness in a relationship turns into a divorce that could have been avoided. You pay either way, but the sooner you face it, the cheaper it is. Let's be real, most people don't calculate the cost because they don't want to feel guilty. They'd rather carry the hidden debt than look at the bill, but guilt is temporary. Regret is permanent. If you're brave enough to add up the true cost of your self-deception, you give yourself the chance to stop the bleeding. It's not about shame, it's about accountability. When you know what the lie is costing you, you can decide whether it's a price you're willing to keep paying. Here's a practical way to bring this home. The next time you catch yourself making an excuse, ask, what is this costing me? Write it down. Don't sugarcoat it. If the lie is, I don't want to confront this person, maybe the cost is respect, peace of mind, or even the health of the relationship. If the lie is, I can't change, maybe the cost is years of settling for less than you deserve. Put the cost on paper and you'll see that the temporary comfort the lie gave you is nowhere near worth the long-term damage it creates. The bottom line is simple. Every lie you tell yourself is like a loan with interest. The more you avoid the truth, the more you owe. You can either identify the cost now and start paying it off with honest action, or you can ignore it and let it quietly bankrupt your potential. There's no neutral ground. The choice is whether you face the truth today or live with the consequences tomorrow. The third key point is that replacing lies with truth plus action builds self-respect. This is where real transformation begins. Honesty by itself is powerful, but it's only half the battle. If you just admit the truth but don't do anything with it, you're stuck in awareness without progress. The magic happens when you pair truth with action. That combination not only breaks the cycle of self-deception, but also builds the kind of self-respect that changes how you see yourself and how you show up in the world. Let's start with honesty. When you finally look at yourself in the mirror and admit the truth, I'm not where I want to be because of my choices, I avoid responsibility when things get hard, or I use excuses to cover my fear. It can sting. That sting is important because it means you're cutting through the fog of denial. But if you stop there, the sting just becomes guilt, and guilt without action is useless. You'll just feel worse about yourself while continuing the same habits. That's why action is critical. It turns guilt into growth. When you take action aligned with the truth, even in small ways, you send a powerful message to yourself. I can trust me. That's what self-respect is built on, trust. Respect isn't just about liking yourself, it's about believing your own word. If you keep lying to yourself, you know on some level that you're not trustworthy. You say you'll start tomorrow, but you don't. You say you'll stick to a budget, but you don't. Over time, that erodes your self-respect. You might not say it out loud, but deep down you stop believing in yourself. Now flip it. The moment you replace a lie with truth and back it up with action, you start rebuilding that trust brick by brick. Let's say you've been telling yourself the lie, I don't have time to exercise. The truth is you do have time, you're just choosing not to use it. So you confront that truth and take action by doing a 15-minute workout today. That single action, small as it is, proves to you that you are not powerless, that you're capable of doing what you say. That proof, repeated consistently, builds self-respect. And once you respect yourself, you start treating yourself better in every area of life. This principle applies to every domain. If you've been lying to yourself about money, I'll pay it off later. And the truth is you've been irresponsible. Then action looks like cutting back unnecessary spending today and making a payment on your debt. That move is more than financial. It's a statement of integrity to yourself. If you've been lying about relationships, it's not that bad. And the truth is you're settling, then action looks like having an honest conversation or setting a boundary. Again, the action reinforces the truth, and in doing so, you reclaim respect for yourself. Self-respect doesn't come from perfection, it comes from alignment. When your actions line up with what you know is true, you feel whole. You don't have to hide behind excuses or spin stories anymore. There's a confidence that comes from living in truth, and it's not loud or arrogant, it's steady. You carry yourself differently when you know you're not running from yourself. That's why the combination of truth and action is so powerful. It gives you back your dignity. Some people hesitate because they think the action has to be massive. They think if they can't overhaul their life overnight, it's pointless. That's another lie. The truth is small, consistent actions build more self-respect than grand gestures that fizzle out. The moment you act on the truth, even in the smallest way, you break the cycle of self-betrayal. And when you repeat that enough, you create a track record with yourself. That's where self-respect becomes unshakable, not because you never fall, but because you know you'll get back up and face reality instead of hiding behind lies. It's also important to understand that action isn't always about fixing everything immediately. Sometimes the action is simply refusing to repeat the lie. If your lie has been, I'm fine, the truth is, I'm struggling, then action might mean picking up the phone and admitting that to a friend or a counselor. That might not solve everything in the moment, but it puts you in alignment with truth, and that's the foundation of change. The cost of not taking action after admitting the truth is self-contempt. You know what you need to do, but you choose not to. That's the fastest way to lose respect for yourself. On the other hand, the reward of pairing truth with action is self-respect so strong that it changes your standards. When you respect yourself, you stop tolerating things that insult your dignity. You stop settling for relationships that drain you, jobs that diminish you, and habits that sabotage you. You don't have to fake confidence. You live it because it comes from within. Here's the bottom line. Replacing lies with truth plus action is the ultimate cycle breaker. Lies breed self-doubt, excuses, and stagnation. Truth plus action breeds integrity, momentum, and confidence. It's not about being flawless. It's about being honest and courageous enough to act on what you know. Every time you do that, you're making a deposit into your self-respect account. And the more deposits you make, the richer your life becomes, not just in results, but in how you see yourself. That's the kind of wealth nobody can take from you. The fourth key point is that change begins the moment you choose honesty over comfort. Most people live their lives chasing comfort, and they don't even realize it. Comfort feels safe, it feels familiar, and it feels easy. Honesty, on the other hand, is uncomfortable. It demands that you face what you've been avoiding, admit what you've been denying, and take responsibility for things you'd rather blame on someone else. That's why so many people stay stuck. They prefer the temporary relief of comfort over the lasting growth that honesty requires. But here's the truth: comfort never leads to transformation. The minute you choose honesty instead of comfort, you open the door to change. Let's look at how this plays out in real life. Imagine someone in a toxic relationship. Comfort tells them it's not that bad, or maybe they'll change, because leaving is hard and scary. Honesty tells them this relationship is draining me and I need to set boundaries or walk away. That choice is painful, but it's also the starting line of freedom. Or think about someone struggling financially. Comfort tells them, everyone has debt, I'll figure it out someday. Honesty tells them, I've been careless with money and it's time to stop digging the hole. That realization might sting, but it's also the spark for building a stable future. The reason honesty is the gateway to change is simple. You cannot change what you refuse to acknowledge. As long as you protect your comfort with lies or half-truths, you're protecting the very thing that keeps you stuck. Comfort is a trap disguised as safety. It whispers, stay here, don't rock the boat, don't make waves. But staying safe in comfort often means staying small, stuck, or miserable. Honesty is the opposite. It's disruptive. It pushes you to admit, I'm not fine, or I'm not showing up the way I need to, or I've been choosing easy over right. That disruption is uncomfortable, but it's also the only way forward. It's important to understand that honesty isn't about beating yourself up. It's not about labeling yourself a failure or dragging yourself through shame. It's about clarity. Honesty says, here's where I am, no excuses, no sugarcoating. Once you have clarity, you have power. Without honesty, you're just fumbling in the dark. That's why so many people spend years trying to change, but never actually change. They're still choosing comfort over honesty, and as a result, their effort is built on a shaky foundation. Choosing honesty over comfort doesn't mean you suddenly transform overnight. What it means is that you've crossed the line between wishing and acting. The exact moment you stop lying to yourself and admit the truth, you shift from being a victim of your circumstances to being the author of your life. You may still have a long road ahead, but you've taken the most important step. You've left denial behind. Take the example of health again. Someone might lie to themselves saying, it's just my genetics, or I'm too busy. That's comfort talking. The moment they admit, I've been neglecting my health and it's on me to change, that honesty is uncomfortable, but it immediately opens the door to action. From that point, even small steps, choosing water over soda, walking for 10 minutes become meaningful because they're rooted in truth. The same principle applies to every area of life, career, relationships, personal goals. Honesty lights the path, comfort keeps you blind. Another powerful thing about choosing honesty over comfort is how it changes your relationship with yourself. When you lie for comfort, deep down you know you're avoiding reality. That avoidance eats away at your confidence and self-respect. But when you choose honesty, even when it's painful, you gain a sense of integrity. You know you're facing life head-on instead of hiding. That integrity builds resilience. It's not about being fearless. It's about being willing to be uncomfortable for the sake of something greater. Of course, comfort will always tempt you back. It will say, just one more day of excuses won't hurt, or you don't need to be that hard on yourself. That's why it takes courage to keep choosing honesty. The first time you do it, it feels like ripping off a bandage. But the more you practice it, the stronger you get. Eventually, you start to prefer the sting of truth over the numbness of lies, because you realize that every moment of honesty leads to growth, while every moment of comfort just delays the inevitable. Here's the bottom line. The turning point in every person's life is the moment they stop protecting themselves with lies and start telling themselves the truth. No matter how uncomfortable it feels, comfort might keep you from feeling pain today, but it will guarantee regret tomorrow. Honesty might hurt today, but it will open the path to freedom, growth, and real change. That's why the decision to choose honesty over comfort isn't just one choice. It's the most important choice you can make if you want to transform your life. The instant you say, I won't lie to myself anymore, I'll face the truth, even when it stings, change has already begun. Not because everything is fixed, but because you've finally stepped onto solid ground. From that place of truth, every step forward counts, every action has meaning, and every bit of progress is real. Honesty is uncomfortable, but comfort is a cage. The day you stop choosing the cage and start choosing truth, you unlock the door to who you were always meant to become.